Gamers, it's here.
The Reaper Shadow Quiz is now live on PetPyvesAnimation.com. In case you've been living in a pocket watch and haven't heard about this project, the Reaper Shadow Quiz is a fun 4-question personality quiz that tells you what mask and shadow you'd have in the Rift in the 12 in Origins universe. You can take it for yourself, your friends, your characters, as many times as you like. It's absolutely free and has been in the works for literal years now. Just head over to the More tab on the homepage to get started. Record your answers for the 4 questions listed on the site, and then browse the massive collection of 294 different shadows you can get and find your answer. I personally recommend using Control F to search for your answer code quicker. Obviously, the shadow's strengths and weaknesses might not be a perfect match to you or a character, but it is meant to be a rough estimate based off of the choices you make in the quiz. Feel free to take it as many times as you need to find the best shadow. I'm a huge fan nowadays of sharing the process of how projects come to life, so let's take a deep dive into the Rift to see what it took to create a personality quiz, draw masks for every single one, and then make it into an accessible webpage. Creating the quiz. This has always been a huge part of Reaper lore. The different Reaper shadows, the different animals that they represent, and all the symbolism behind it have really always been a huge staple for Reapers. Seeing them transform, watch them hide their identity through different means. These shadows also provide them with the abilities they have. For example, Imp's foresight is something that his shadow gives him, his Cobra shadow. So obviously this is a very important piece of lore, and it's honestly some of the most fan favorite pieces of lore that I've ever written for 12 in Origins. Lots of people love making Reaper OCs, and I love to see it, but now there's like a really cool way for you to take the quiz and really find out what would suit your Reaper best, what would suit you best. What would suit your pet? It's just a super fun concept that I've always wanted to do, but never really had the means or knew how to get started. I knew for a fact that there was a ton of animals I'd love to make shadows for. Obviously, some of the shadows listed are very generic, such as dinosaur, but there are also very specific dinosaurs as well, such as Velociraptor, Megalodon, Plesiosaurus, Triceratops, but I obviously couldn't include every single dinosaur there ever was, so that's why there's some generic shadows on the quiz, just so if you want to make up your own meaning for specific ones that aren't listed here, you can go for it. The only thing I didn't get to include when creating the quiz was bugs, and I am super sad about that. I'm really regretting that, but it would have been so much more work to add on another part of a question, and it would have added almost too many shadows to the point that I would probably lose track of everything, more so than I already was. So obviously the first thing I did was make a gigantic list of all of the different animals I would like to use in the shadow quiz. So I went through all of the ones you can find all across the earth that I found to be the most interesting, or would be the most fun, and also my personal favorites, of course. I had to delve into the ancient creatures of our world, and I had decided to go and find some prehistoric animals to add in as well. And then I thought, how much more fun would it be if we also included mythical creatures? Because then that would insinuate that in the Morth universe, or the world in which 12 in Origins takes place, that just proves that those things were once real. And I think that there's so much fun in that. So after collecting a gigantic list of everything I would like to include in the quiz, this came the hard part. I had to really narrow it down. I had to figure out what the questions were going to be and how many shadows exactly there was going to be. So I did the math and I came up with 3 questions to start, each with varying amounts of answers. The first question was always going to be having 3 answers. The second and third questions were always going to have 7. So right there, you're already in the hundreds with the different possibilities for each of those. But then I decided to add on the 4th question so I could have just a little bit of extra wiggle room to really add more of the mythical and ancient shadows in. So once I had an idea for how many questions there was going to be and how many options there was going to be per question, then I decided to connect everything in some way. What I did was make a giant table of all of the different shadows in alphabetical order. I then found all of the different symbolism I could possibly find from books, online, my own knowledge, lots of different sources, mostly my own interpretation though. For example, if there was an animal that was nocturnal, I would list them as more active at night, or does better with the power of the moon. So it was very interpretive for me to sit there and go meticulously through 294 different animals and decide what were their strengths and what were their weaknesses if they were personified. Then I chose a single word to represent every single one of them. It was going to be a very unique word that would basically help me find the way that it's going to connect to an answer. To use Imp Shadow as an example, the Cobra's single answer, the single thing that ties any answer you get to the Cobra, is history. While there is a lot of different parts of the Cobra strengths and weaknesses, the main focus of the Cobra shadow is going to be history. So once I had a single word to define every single shadow, that's when I decided to start connecting them to different categories. I sorted them all by mind, body, and spirit, so all the different options for question 1. Once I had them all figured out where they would fit into those categories, then I went down and divided them even further into elements, into fire, water, earth, sky, sun, moon, and stars. Then when I divided them from there, I divided them even further into different motives in life. So glory, friendship, power, happiness, knowledge, freedom, and love. Those were all the options from question 3. And then finally, when we had it all narrowed down, there was only 2 shadows for every single option left. So I left the final option of being a daytime person or a nighttime person. So then between the last 2 remaining options, I had to decide which one was more nighttime related and which one was more daytime related. There were some instances when making this that it wasn't going to be absolutely perfect. For example, my tortoise landed somehow in the water category when it needed to be in the earth category, but there just simply wasn't enough room in the earth category for every single earth animal. So I had to look at it in the sense of, okay, the tortoise is not obviously a water creature, but maybe it is very calm and very relaxed and takes things nice and slow like a gentle river. So you have to leave it up to interpretation and get creative with a couple of these things, because obviously this is a massive, just brain-boggling pile of a mess of a thing that I was trying to create, and oh my gosh, it's not perfect, but I'm happy with how it is regardless. After I had everything divided up by their single descriptive word, and I had everything picked out for how all the answers were going to connect, then came the difficult part, drawing every single one of these guys. I tried to get very creative when making these masks because I wanted them to each be very unique, to where different Reapers could look at each other and say, "Oh wow, I love that your shadow is the beta fish. That's really interesting. I haven't seen a beta fish mask since I came here. You're like the first person I've ever seen have that." You know, because it's rare. I would really like for there to be a lot of Reapers that are really interested in the different masks and shadows and are very interested in the symbolism behind it and can really get behind all the differences of their comrades and understand them deeper just through the metaphor of their mask. So I did this in alphabetical order because there was probably no other better way to do this and keep track of everything without losing my mind. I started to do this on a series of live streams starting back in 2020. Oh my god, why did this take so long? Oh, you're gonna find out. So obviously some of the masks are very generic, very much resembling the real life skulls of a lot of animals. My search history is cursed. Oh my god. I had to look up so many skulls. If the government is watching, I promise I'm not, like, evil. I'm just making a thing. God. But when it came to the prehistoric masks, I really wanted them to be a darker tone. I really wanted them to look like a museum fossil. You know how they color them super differently just so you can see the features a little better? It's gonna be something kind of like that. I also wanted them to look more aged so you can tell, wow, that is gonna be an ancient shadow. Like, that has to be the shadow of a dinosaur because it looks so prehistoric just based on the color alone. So you'll notice throughout all the drawings that there might be some very different colored masks, and that's because they're trying to stick out because they are the ancient masks. For some, obviously, some animals don't have skulls, they pretty much have cartilage, so I had to be super creative in making their skulls look kind of like their animals, such as the angelfish. There were so many instances where I had to add on some different unique things just to make it slightly different because a lot of the rodents looked very similar, obviously. So we had to make up some new different features to make them more distinguished and unique. When it came to the mythical masks, I decided to add a little tint of gold. There's always going to be a little bit of gold on whatever mask is mythical to indicate that, hey, this creature is something of legend. This mask is something of legend, and this shadow is extremely powerful. Shiva, for example, has the dragon shadow, and now her mask is going to have a little bit of gold on her horns, which is really cool. I can't even summarize how many hours it took to draw all of these. I had to look very carefully at my references and try to make them as close to life as possible, or I had to look up the different animals and figure out what feature would set them aside, and figure out what features I wanted to include on the mask to make it really pop and say, wow, that looks like a crab. Even though crabs don't have skulls, that looks like a crab. That's cool. I wanted it to really stick out. I wanted you to be able to say, oh wow, they have my favorite animal in the quiz. That's so cool. I want to know what the mask looks like. Some really unique masks came out of this too. Like the jellyfish. Obviously jellyfish don't have bones, but look how cool the mask is. I took all of the practicality out of it being a mask for the most part and just threw that out the window and was like, you know what? If it looks cool, then that's awesome. I would much rather it just be awesome and look cool than it makes sense at this point. We already have talking cats and dogs that are like undead beings that decide who goes to heaven and hell. This whole idea is already out of pocket. We might as well have some fun with the masks, right? So obviously, this is the portion that took the longest, but I really wanted there to be a visual for every single one that I had, because it would really help anybody who wanted to draw it themselves not have to go and Google a bunch of scary skulls like I had to, oh my god, but also it gives the visual of my interpretation of, hey, octopus don't really have skulls, but they do have beaks and they do have tentacles, so here's the really freaking cool mask your guy can wear if you get that one as a shadow. Look how cool that is, what the heck? It just shows you what was going through my brain when I had to sit here and draw 300 different animal skulls and slowly losing my sanity because everything started to look the same, but I had to make them look different and I was going a little nuts, but we got there and it looks super great seeing them all in order, all collectively. Drawing this many Reaper skulls was probably one of the most tedious challenges I'd ever done, and the reason why it had taken so long is because I tried to do it exclusively on live streams because I wanted to make things together, but when my live streaming schedule became a little hectic and I became a little more unavailable due to life events, I had to take the step back and decide, alright, I'm just gonna start doing some batches of skulls here and there. And I did. So some of this stuff I did completely on my own, but again, these are just there to help guide you. If you want to draw any of these masks differently on your characters, please do. These are just here to give you a frame of reference, to perhaps save you from your Google search becoming full of skulls, nothing but skulls. And just have fun with it. If you want to make characters based off of my shows, go for it. Just have fun. You don't need permission. Just have fun and make art and do things, please. But after all of these were drawn, then came the even more tedious part. Yeah, it got more tedious. It did. We had to design the webpage. Now, I argue this took the longest because, oh my god. Web design in general. Ugh. But I went through so many different changes trying to make it something really special, to the point that I was putting myself in a bit of a block, trying super hard to make it overly complicated and more than it was. But in reality, I finally realized the simpler it is, the better. You might notice that it is simply a 4-question prompt and then a chart with answers, because to be honest, that is the easiest way to deliver hundreds and hundreds of items of knowledge into your brain. I really could have sat here and made thousands of individual pages for every single one, but I think my website would literally explode into a million pieces if I tried to do that. So realistically, This is the best way for you to access it, for me to access it, and you can see everything in alphabetical order. I decided to sit there and implement all the strengths and weaknesses and how rare the mask was, which, oh boy, I did this part later. I decided to make a rarity scale for all the different masks and shadows, okay? I decided to figure out, hey, how often do these actually appear in the rift? How rare are these? And let me tell you, the process was tedious. Of course it was! Everything about this was tedious. Basically, I made a points. This is so complicated. I don't even know if I'm gonna explain this. It's like trying to explain why I'm a genius, but I'm also insane. I basically made a point system of how common the answer would be. How common the answer would be in the rift. For example, lots of Reapers are obviously gonna resonate with the first answer, spirit. Obviously, they're Reapers, they are spirits. So obviously a lot of the spirit shadows are going to be a little more common than maybe the body shadows, because the body shadows, I mean, Reapers don't technically have bodies, they're undead. So I had to sit there and figure out, well, technically, Reapers are most related to the earth, and Reapers are looking for freedom or knowledge or power when they're in the rift. I had to sit there and basically do the psychology behind every single answer and figure out which of these shadows are going to be the most common and uncommon and rare and very rare. So in the end, after this horrific process was over, I ended up with 20 very rare shadows, about 57 rare shadows, 62 uncommon shadows, and then 105 common shadows. So there's at least 100 of them that are common, and then all the rest of them are a little more uncommon and rare, and then there are some that are just very rare. They're even more rare than the prehistoric and the mythical ones. If you really want to get technical, the order goes like this, from most common to most rare. Common, uncommon, rare, legendary, ancient, and then very rare. That is the scale in which you could get the different levels of rarity of shadows. And it took forever. So enjoy that little tidbit of information and that small detail that I spent hours working on. So needless to say, when I got to the portion of working on the website, I was ding-dang tired, man. I was like, this has got to be easy for everyone to access and for me to create, because my god, this has taken years and I am tired of being nitpicky on myself and being a perfectionist. So we're just gonna make it like this and see how it works, and if not, we will fix it later. That has been a huge learning thing for me, by the way. Learning to be okay with it being not perfect. And just allowing yourself to change a little bit in the future. It doesn't have to be perfect right off the bat. And that is pretty much why this project has taken so long, is because I held myself back, feeling like I needed to make everything absolutely perfect. When in reality, nothing is, and we should just enjoy it and fix it as we go. That being said, if you have any suggestions or any ideas or any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, please let me know in the comment section below so I can try and see what I can do once my brain has unmelted from this entire endeavor. But I really wanted to make the webpage, the Reaper Mask quiz, to be really cool. I decided to make a logo for it, and then I made the super cool little book that tells you how to take the quiz. It like moves, like, ooh, it has moving pictures, because like stuff like that in the Rift just exists. It's a fun, magical place. I wanted there to look like there's libraries in the background. I really want it to feel like alive, but not too alive to where it crashes your computer. So you can see all the questions, and then you can see your giant chart. You can scroll around. If you click on it, it'll actually hold your place and highlight the one shadow you're looking at, which is really nice. And then, of course, I wanted to include a gallery where you could see all of the different masks up close, because what the freaking heck is this? Like, what kind of preview is this? Like, website. So now you can see all the different masks up close and personal. I wanted to show the rarity scale so you can actually tell just how rare yours is. I tried to include as much fun stuff as possible. I even wanted to show you guys, hey, if you got the Ram shadow, you share it with this character, Hollow. Isn't that cool? So I really wanted it to be special, and I feel like I managed to make the webpage just as special as the project itself, because this was a very ambitious thing to tackle. Making a personality quiz is no joke. I learned the hard way, but it was super fun. I really enjoyed making it. Wish it wouldn't have taken so long. But hey, we're just in time, you know? I feel like this is a great time to have it done while we're still working on Origins, while everything's being redone, everything's being revamped and turning into a new beautiful era of Pet Peeves. Now we finally have this to say, hey, we accomplished, and it's here, and it'll always be here. So thank you guys so much for the support. Holy cow, it's been so long. I am so happy with how it turned out, and I can't wait to see where it goes in the future. I'm so open to perhaps adding more. I might be able to implement something into my website to where you guys can draw your own and submit them and make suggestions, and you guys can make your own fan page full of shadows. That'll be the next step, is so we can make infinite amount of shadows, and it would be so much fun. So it's gonna be really fun and interactive, so thanks for sticking around while we figure it all out and decide on what we want to do. We have so much creative freedom here, having our own place, our own website, our own home. We can literally shape it into anything we want. But for now, I'm gonna rest my brain. It's melting everywhere, like a popsicle on a hot summer day. So I'm gonna go put it back in the freezer and let it get a nice long rest, because it's definitely got a little bit of mush from having to understand all of that. If you watched the process part of the video, thank you so much for being interested, and I hope you found it to be a little bit informative and interesting nonetheless. Again, you can take the quiz anytime for free at PetPyvesAnimation.com, and under the More tab, you will see Reaper Shadow Quiz. If you'd like to see previews or updates on any sort of projects I make, such as the quiz, or changes coming to the quiz, you can check out Pet Peeves Premium, which is also on the website. Super convenient, wow. That's where I share all of my sneak peeks and all of the behind-the-scenes work on all of my projects. But yeah, with that, brain go to sleep mode. Thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you for watching, and enjoy! Enjoy the Reaper Mask quiz! It is finally here! I'm gonna go rest now. I will see you guys in the next video.